Hello friends, and welcome to another video. I am so proud of you if this is the third video you have watched of mine to get ready. This just means you guys are investing in yourselves and your writing to make this Camp Nano something of substance and something that you actually get done. Anyways, so in this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about characters, which I'm really excited about because I have like an unhealthy relationship with my characters. Because I have a relationship with my fictional characters, but I think that's like normal for writers. I'm not 100% sure or not, but they kind of feel like my friends at this point. So for me personally, I find characters the most important part of a story. Doesn't matter if the plot sucks. If you have a good character, it can sometimes save the story. That's just my personal opinion, but I certainly find if I am not invested in the characters or I don't like the characters, I won't read the story. So this episode is going to be all about characters. I'm going to share with you, I think I'm going to have 8 tips on how to make your characters the best kind of characters. So my first tip for you guys when it comes to creating a character is get to know them a little bit. So like once you kind of have figured out like who they are, get to know them. You guys are going to be spending a lot of time together. Probably at least an hour a day for 30 days. If you're going to be doing like 50,000 words, that's a lot of time. You can't end up getting sick or bored of them. So sit yourself down, imagine your character sitting across from you, make yourself some tea, maybe make your character some tea, and have like a chat with them. And this might sound like insane to somebody who's not a writer. You know, we are writers, so you get it. A tip is you could pretend that you're doing like a Vogue like 72 questions or something like that, and then make up their answers, whether you want to write it down, imagine it in your head, say it out loud. Interviewing your character is one of the weirdest, wackiest, but most fun ways to get to know who your character is. Okay, tip number 3. This one I like a lot. Make sure that your story is character driven, not plot driven. I find that when I am writing my story, it is historical fiction, so I get so carried away in the accuracy of the plot line, everything that is happening, that sometimes I find I'm writing the story where the story is happening to the characters, and that's a very passive way of writing. So instead, make the character the center of the story and make the events happen because of the character. You don't want to follow the events in the story, you want to follow the character through the story and the events seen through their perspective, because it adds colors to it. You're not just saying this city was bombed, you're saying this character lost their mother, their home, and their lover, and they're really sad about it. It just brings it down to a human level. So if you want to know if your story is plot or character driven, ask yourself, is it obvious what the character wants? That should be, out of every single question you ask yourself about your story, I find this the number one most important question. This one question drives the story. Second question, why do they not have it right now? If there is not enough obstacles in the way as to why they don't have it right now, then you don't really have a story. Because the whole basic plot of like a story and like a story arc is your characters here, what they want is over here, and all the obstacles to get that thing is what they go through. That's a very like stripped down version of a story, but that's basically what a story is. It's conflict and resolution. So if for some reason the plot of your novel is like a romance novel and they want to get with somebody, you need to constantly ask yourself, why are these two people not together now? If there is not a good enough reason as to why they're not together, you don't have a strong enough problem in your story. I think we're on tip number 4. So I'm just going to say tip number 4. Make your character's life suck, but don't make it unrealistic. I don't know if you've ever read those stories where it just seems like this character never runs out of steam, never loses energy, doesn't eat, doesn't need to sleep, doesn't need to go to the bathroom, doesn't feel anxiety, sadness, has no effect on traumatic events that happen. Like, make your character's life suck, because there needs to be conflict in your story for your story to be a story, but make it realistic. Make your character break down. Oh, maybe they've put on a strong face, but they have a moment where they kind of break down and like let their feelings out. Maybe have them sleep once in a while. That's something I find so unrealistic. I don't even know if it's a trope or not, but it's like the stay up all night climax, where you get to like the climax of your novel where everything is like rock bottom, and then you get to the epiphany where they figure out what they need to do before the final battle, and then they just don't sleep. They like spend all night like preparing for the final battle, and then morning dawns and they have enough energy to like fight an entire kingdom and win, and then celebrate afterwards, and they haven't slept in like 48 hours. I find that really unrealistic. I understand that having them like be up all night and stuff like increases tension in your story, but just make sure that tension is interspersed with bits of like realisticness, reality basically. You know, if a character is climbing a mountain, have them experience trouble breathing, stopping, their legs hurting. Put yourself in your character's situation. Okay, it's hour 3 of them walking across a ravaged landscape in the hot desert sun. Would you be thirsty by now? I think you would. So maybe just put in, you know, I went to grab a sip of my water. This stuff may be boring and trivial, but it's not like you're informing your reader every time your character has a bathroom break, but you're just inserting it in there so you're not making the reader suspend their belief so much, so it makes your story more believable, easier for your reader to kind of put themselves in their character's shoes, which is the whole point of the story, to make it fun and stuff. Imagine you're babysitting like a puppy or like a small child. Give your character what they need. Please don't starve them or like deprive them of like the basic necessities for too long. Food, shelter, water, sleep. And emotional support. That too. Don't forget the emotional side to things. Character tip number 5. This could be argued, but generally don't make your character unlikable, but give them flaws. Don't make your character so like unbearable to read about that the reader just puts down the book in frustration, but give them flaws at the same time. So don't make them perfect, this perfect person, because that also makes them unlikable. Just like if they're like the nicest person in the world and everybody loves them and they're perfect, that's as annoying as someone who's like just a complete straight up like villain who just hates everyone and everything. You can have like characters in your story who like are totally unlikable, but your main character or your main characters, make some part of them, I hate this word, but relatable to the audience, where the reader can develop an emotional connection with them. This is a good tip for making your character appear 3-dimensional as opposed to 2-dimensional. Give them a hobby. It does not have to be related to the story at all, though a really sign of good writing is it doesn't seem to be related, and then somehow it comes through as like a secret strength in the middle of the story, like at rock bottom. Their love of airplanes somehow becomes relevant to the story because they're stuck in an airplane that's falling from the sky and they know how to fly the airplane because they just happen to love them so much. Something like that. Also, giving them a hobby gives the reader an idea that the character had a life before the story started, and they will have a life if they don't die at the end after the story is finished. This gives the reader a sense that the character is 3D, that they have lived a life up until the point where they're introduced to the character and their story. It gives them substance. It's not like when you open the page, the character suddenly starts existing, and then when you close the last page of the book, they suddenly end. The character will continue to go on. And I think a really good part of that is bringing up things that have happened before the story started. Word of caution though, make sure that you don't drown the reader in backstory or flashbacks, and you don't use that too often, and you don't use that as a crutch to make your story interesting. Only use background info and flashbacks to progress the story that you're telling in the present. And this is kind of a little bit like a challenge for you guys. So tip number 8, or challenge, I challenge you to add some diversity into your book. I think especially now in 2019 in YA literature, but also in all literature, there is a lot more diversity coming in, whether that be characters of different sexualities, skin color, ethnic origins, different religions, disabilities, mental illnesses, body sizes. If you include some diversity in your book, it appeals to a wider audience, and a big reason, at least why I write, is to give a voice to somebody who hasn't seen themselves represented yet in media. I find it's so important to represent minorities in media and to do it right. So if you are, let's say, for example, writing a bisexual character and you yourself are not bisexual, make sure that you kind of read up on bisexual stereotypes and don't write a bisexual character to those stereotypes, because it is representation, but it's harmful representation. So maybe somebody who has never heard of bisexuality reads your book and they get introduced to this concept of bisexuality and think that that's what bisexuality is, and it's not, because it's been inaccurately represented in the media. And as someone who is bisexual, it's so frustrating because you hardly have any good bisexual rep. Anyways, that is all for this video. Don't make things difficult. You don't have to incorporate all of these tips into your story, but I hope that these kind of just get you thinking about your character and thinking about how you want your character to come across, who you want your character to be, and really treat them like a friend, because they're the ones who you're going to be spending probably the most time with. If it stresses you out, you don't even have to write anything down. Sometimes if you just start talking to your character in your head, by the time you sit down to actually write your story, they come out a lot more real than you would have thought that they were. And when in doubt, let your character take the reins and tell their story. You get what I mean. Thank you for watching again, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.